Welcome to the MyFinJourney Podcast, where we dive deep into real-world strategies that shape financial literacy, growth mindsets, and entrepreneurial success. Each week, we sit down with inspiring guests who share their journeys, the obstacles they've overcome, and the actionable steps that have fueled their financial freedom. I'm your host, Mustafa Ladda, and today we're joined by Jake Rushton, a self-funding expert, a keynote speaker with over 18 years of experience helping businesses and individuals secure their financial futures. Jake's approach to transparent employee benefits, tax-efficient retirement planning, and building wealth is not just about theory. It's about real-world applications that anyone can use. Jake, welcome to MyFinJourney.
Thank you. Excited to be here.
Thank you, man. Jake, I would love for you to start by just walking us through your journey so far.
Yeah, it's been an interesting ride. I think everyone's career kind of always has these twists and turns you don't expect. Originally, back in college, thought I'd be a dentist. That was the goal, which was funny, but I didn't really love science all that much. And so I went through the whole path. I did everything I needed to do. I got waitlisted, and I realized this could take a few years. And I didn't want to wait around. My focus had always been on business, and I always loved investing. I always was intrigued by the stock market, by how to grow businesses and actually make money. And so my path took a different turn. I decided to jump into that world. So I got recruited by E-Trade early on. So I joined that firm and got licensed and really just started off just drinking from a fire hose, doing all sorts of different things on the phones, helping people understand their investing. And I did that for about a decade, just trying to figure out where was my place in this financial industry. And it really took quite a few different opportunities for me to find what I love, and that's education, helping people understand really difficult topics, but topics that are relative to our day-to-day lives, but for some reason, people like to complicate them to get paid more. It's just something that I always find interesting. And I landed in this 401k world. I actually got to know the owner of a regional employee benefits shop that had never offered 401k plans to their clients. And we decided to launch a 401k team from scratch. And it was exciting. I knew enough about investing. I knew enough about structuring accounts and things, but I had never been all in on 401k. And that was probably that pivotal moment for me that took me on a path where I felt like I fit. I felt like this is it. And I really enjoyed that because every day I was dealing with different things. I was meeting with business owners. I was helping employees understand this benefit. And it's a fascinating world. The 401k world is very small. There's a lot of experts across the country, but they all know each other. And at the end of the day, it's just a benefit to hopefully help the business owner grow their company. And it took me a while to figure that out, why a business owner would want a 401k. It wasn't for them to save for themselves. It was to grow the asset of their business. And that's a 20-year span of what I did, 10 years trying to figure it out, found 401k, enjoyed it. But even now, after that, 10 years of doing 401k, I ended up shifting gears, realizing most people didn't have enough in their 401k because their health insurance has gone up just a ton every year. And that was the real problem. That's the real struggle that most families in America are struggling with. How to pay for health care, because it's this fear they have to have it to get care. And so there's a lot of conflicts of interest and there's a lot of things we can dive into, but that's what I've been spending most of my time on in the most recent last year, specifically only on that employee benefits piece.
I love it, Jake. Thank you so much for walking us through that journey. And if you're just tuning into the episode now, that is going to be our agenda, our framework that we're going to walk through, because there's so much knowledge and wisdom in Jake's journey. And I feel like he said it so succinctly, so simply, but there's so much depth there. So if you don't mind, Jake, help us understand the psychology of why dentistry. Was it something that came from your parents? Was it society? If we're talking to Jake at 16 who's applying to random schools in undergraduate, probably did pre-dental or whatever, help us understand why dentistry, especially given like maybe the aversion or lack of preference towards the sciences.
Yeah, it was interesting. The path I took, I don't have any family or friends or anyone that is a dentist. I didn't have any in that would help me get.
You have the face for dentistry. Smile for us.
I don't. There you go. Always intrigued me, but mostly what pulled me in was the business side of it. This was a long time ago. This is back in, I guess, early 2000s when I was exploring this option. And I always thought that running a dental practice was different. It was actually a small business and it was always struggling to get customers. And that part of me always interested me. Like, why would a person choose this dentist or the other one? So I was always intrigued by that. There was these kind of new dental spas opening up. And so I was like, this would be cool to own a chain of those. And so it's something that I was fascinated by, but then I got into the weeds of like, how do you get into the school? And there was no schools at the time in Utah where I live, and I waitlisted all over the country, different places. And
blessing in disguise.
Yeah, and I started like realizing, all right, some people I talked to have been on the wait list for 3, 4, 5 years, and my family had just started. I'd been married for a couple of years, and I was like, this isn't going to work. And I'm happy that I ended up making that pivot. There's no regrets at all. But it was a good experience for me because I actually ended up helping a lot of dentists navigate some of these tax strategies that we're able to do with retirement plans. It became a real focus of mine for a few years. And having my dental background, I could understand them a little bit better. So for whatever reason, it worked out.
I think that's so beautiful, right? Because from my perspective, Jake, it comes down to about knowing yourself and knowing when's the right time to pivot versus when is the right time to dig deeper. So I want to understand from your perspective with E-Trade, you were there for about 10 years. Were there any points where you were like, hey, maybe I need to pivot, but then ultimately decided to dig deeper, maybe learn a different skill set and really expand your ability to add value to clients and customers?
Yeah, actually, I ended up leaving E-Trade, I think it was probably a year and a half. I ended up going to a different insurance agency that was launching a broker-dealer. So E-Trade got me off the ground. E-Trade was great because back in the day, this was back when like stock trading, this is before the crash of 2008 and 9. This was a really fun time when online trading took off. And so I was able to go through some of the different departments, work in the banking department, the stock options department. I got a ton of real good experience real fast. And then I jumped in the broker-dealer world where we had about 300 insurance agents trying to sell securities, which didn't always translate. I didn't really know that world because they were selling insurance policies. And
it's a bit different.
Too. I did a lot of compliance, a lot of operations. And I never really found my passion. I kept hitting this like wall of like, this isn't it. There's something missing here because I was doing a lot of just behind the scenes work and not really dealing with the people actually doing or buying the product, right? And that's when I finally came to 401k. And I think it had to do with that E-Trade beginning. You're not allowed as an E-Trade on the phones. We weren't giving advice, right? We were just helping people transact and navigate the online system. So I always, from the very beginning, got taught we don't give advice. And what's so great about 401k versus an independent financial advisor or planner is the employee has to make their choice. My job is just to educate them, help them understand all this. They make the final choice. I'm not logging in. I can't change whatever they invested in their 401k, but I can help them understand it. And I think my unique approach from that whole experience was that I didn't focus on investments first, which you think might sound weird. Most 401k advisors come in and talk about the market for an hour. I would talk about the match, the company match, and the tax strategy behind it, because those are 2 double-digit numbers that I could guarantee. When you talk about investments, I can't guarantee anything. There's nothing I could say that I'm going to know any more than the next person, and the market's going to do its thing. Your job is to pick what you're comfortable with, and I'll help you understand that. But the first 2 are what's important. And so that was always a little bit how I was different, but it came because of my experience over those years, early years doing operations and compliance and understanding. That wasn't the world I want to be in. I didn't want to give advice. I wanted to give education and help.
Jake, I love that. And I find it very powerful. And I'm going to pause just to let that sink in, because really, Jake, what you've done is you've taken us on that journey of Jake at, let's say, 16, 18, to Jake, let's say, at 25. For a lot of people, 25, 27, 28, early to mid in their career, they're still figuring things out in terms of what the industry looks like, and ultimately what their passion is. But I think today in 2025, there's so much of a conversation of just follow your passion, just do what you want to do. But there isn't always a way to monetize that. There isn't always a way to know what your passion is. And maybe every year your passion changes because you find something else and you're like, hey, this isn't it. Or you're in your passion and then you're like, wait, this is not what I thought it was and what I thought I was signing up for. So from your perspective, when you were quote unquote selling 401k benefits, it felt like everyone else was just throwing out data, facts, figures. This is what the market's doing. And you had a different approach, a more value-centric approach, a more approach that's fundamentally saying, hey, this is what the plan will definitely offer you. This is how the plan mitigates risk. Help me understand why you went down that strategy instead of what everyone else was doing.
When you meet with hundreds of thousands of employees and you sit down with them for 15, 20 minutes and you go through their financial situation, I mean, it is incredible how few people are actually prepared to retire. They're not on track. They're stuck in their job. They feel like there's no hope, but they'll start to put a little bit away and they see all right, I got some money here, but it's nowhere near enough. And you start to realize they really don't have a good source of information and they're not preparing themselves for really any kind of financial freedom at any point. And so a lot of times I'd get in these conversations with people and it would just help me understand what is the actual end buyer of the 401k product. really needing. And it's more financial coaching than anything. It's not, here's all the research behind this mutual fund versus this mutual fund. That's not really going to help them. They have to learn how to manage their money.
This expense ratio is not going to be the deal breaker. It's more important how much they're putting in.
Yeah, it's not, oh, this record keeper is this much, and it's not going to help them. You help them log in, and they see their account, but that's not it. The problem is they're not doing they need to invest in themselves. That was probably the common theme. Most people are just scraping by and waiting for that next little raise, maybe doing something good at their job, but they're not really investing in other ways, whether that's reading, buying a course, getting a coach. Like your average person isn't really doing those things. And that blew my mind because that's the mindset I've always had is I want to learn. I want to do more. I want to be better at this. I want to improve. And I'm 43 years old and I'm still doing that. I'm still constantly like, what can I do next? How can I get better sleep? What do I need to eat different? Like all parts of my life. And that impacts everything else as far as your business and your money goes. If you're not doing those things, you're going to struggle in this area and it's going to impact the other areas. So that, to me, that was a good experience of meeting with all these employees is I kept seeing this over and over again. I was like, all right, it's not about which fund to pick. It's about how do you get the most out of each dollar in the most effective way. And that's what I did.
I love it, man. I love it, Jake, because I think that central theme of people needing to invest in themselves is not really communicated. So obviously for you, it came naturally and you pivoted and you were self-reflective. But for a lot of people, why do you think that they don't realize they need to invest in themselves? Or on the flip side, why do you think the educational system doesn't really highlight that people need to invest in themselves, or employers don't highlight that people need to invest in themselves?
This gets deep. I have this discussion with
Sorry.
people. No, I love it because I think the system is designed in a way, and I talk about the school system, college, and I was a part of this. I followed exactly. I went and chased job after job. I got my resume ready. I really good at interviewing, kept trying to find the next opportunity and hoping that and without really understanding the fundamental of what I was doing. I was coming into a company to hopefully make them more money than they paid me. And I think we're taught in school to be good employees, to sit down, do what you're told, follow, don't be creative, don't push boundaries, don't ruffle any feathers. And I think that's where people that maybe have some sort of entrepreneurial spirit naturally struggle. And that's been me over the years. I struggle with that mindset because employers don't want you to think that way because they want good employees. They want to pay you as little as they can to get the most out of you. And that's how business operates. If it doesn't, it's going to go out of business. So the system is tilted in the way that the majority of people are taught to chase jobs and find jobs and instead of create jobs and fix problems and bring value to the world and try to find a way to get paid for that and be patient to do it. If I could go back in time, I would flip it all the way around. I would take as much risk as possible instead of coming out of college and taking that first job that seemed, wow, this is a great paycheck. I wish. And it was a different time then, right? We didn't have Facebook didn't exist. We didn't have the things we have today. We didn't have the resources to communicate and sell courses and do all those things. But that is one thing that I would definitely change. Could I go back? And I would tell people today, take every risk possible, try as many things as you can, find out what you're interested in and lean into that, and don't chase the paycheck. Chase the value and the skills that you need to bring more value in the future yourself.
I love that, Jake. It's very powerful. I feel like you said two huge takeaways that I want to reiterate. But before I do that, I want to say that if you're listening to this episode, if you're finding value in what Jake's saying, please consider subscribing, leaving a 5-star review, commenting below what you like and what you enjoy and what's resonated with you that Jake said. But Jake, you said two things that really resonated with me that don't make sense to me. So I want your help to understand it if you don't mind. We're taught to be good employees. I agree with you there. And we're taught not to ruffle feathers. I agree with you there. And we're taught basically not to be disruptors. I agree with you there. But the flip side is that business that hires people who are more entrepreneurial, who are disruptors, who are creating products and creating solutions from a value-centric perspective to add more value for the client, for the customer. And then the customer buys more from the company. So for me, what I don't understand is why don't companies value that or realize that there's a huge opportunity cost in not having those disruptors in their company who challenge the status quo?
I think it goes back to the culture of the company and the leadership and where the phase the company's in. And I've met with so many different business owners over time, and I see these shifts as they grow. And the hiring process, there's layers that get put in there and the owner is not in the mix of all the time, all of those hires. And every company's different. There's not to say there's companies that don't value that and hire people to do that, but it's definitely been hard for me to find a company that enjoys that. It's more rare than it is common. And I think you can find that, but it's also employees that struggle with it all the time. They want to do things and they're not allowed to, and they just stay in their box. A good example for me, like I joined during the crash, 2008 and 9, everything was crazy in the financial world. I actually joined Goldman Sachs, and it was a really tough role for me because it was so different. It was a very New Jersey culture in Utah, and I just didn't fit. And I realized like a week into it, this was a mistake. I can't stand it here. And I struggled for a long time trying to figure out what to do. And I hadn't really understood what I know now as far as you can bring value anywhere and you can get paid for that value. At the time, I didn't think that way. I spent all my extra energy with my resume and calling people and trying to get the next job I could find. And that was the experience that I went through. But I think companies that do hire people like that and are able to understand what motivates them and able to let them push the boundaries a little bit are going to obviously have more success quicker. They might have more failures too, but that's how we grow and that's how we get things to really adapt and go fast. As organizations grow, it's always harder to do those different ideas and they take more time and there's more red tape. So there's got to be a fit, and that individual looking for that fit has to be aware of that. And you never think that you've gone too far and you can't make that change. You can always make a change. I made a change.
And what I would say is there's also a level of being comfortable being uncomfortable. I think for an individual, that's a lot easier than a company has a lot more moving pieces. You even touched on that New Jersey culture, right? I'm from New Jersey. We have a certain way of doing work, but it's to say that there's value everywhere and you need to figure out the right pieces. The other piece that you mentioned that I think was really valuable that is maybe hard to understand is the idea of taking risk early on and the value of that. Help me understand from your perspective, given your career, everything you know today, if you were to go back in time to Jake at 18, Jake at 25, what would you have done first?
I would have tried a lot more things. I would have gone and tested out what I really enjoyed and not chased a salary. And I think that would have led to finding a little bit more about myself earlier and how I operate and how I like to work and how I enjoy spending my day. And I work hard, but sometimes you can work hard and not actually monetize that. And that's always, I think, the battle is like you got to connect the two. But early on, when you don't have your family and your kids and your house and like all this stuff, I think that's your opportunity to test and to try. I was just talking to my brother-in-law last night saying we work super hard in our 20s to be able to buy a bunch of stuff in our 30s. And then when you're 40s, all you do is fix all that stuff that starts to break on you. And that's the phase I'm in right now is like I'm having this great time with my kids over and over doing coaching football, going on vacations, doing those things. And I need more of that time right now. And that's because I have this short window with them. I've only got another 10 years where they're at my house and then they're going to have their own lives. And so I want to maximize everything I can with them. But at the same time, I've got to support them and provide for them. And so going back in your teens and 20s, take advantage of not having all the responsibility by chasing what you love, improving your value instead of just trying to get paid more for very little skill set you have. It's just you're chasing the wrong thing. Chase the skills.
I love it, Jake. So you said two very powerful things from my perspective. Number one was like understanding yourself, having that self-clarity. And you defined it as by like when you're young, investing in different businesses, investing in different things to learn skills and grow. And then the second thing you basically said is if you have money now in your 40s to enjoy, it's much more valuable because then you can spend your time with your kids and you don't have to worry about the money. So I really want to double tap and zoom into both, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Help me understand from an individual's perspective or a society perspective, why is it that schools don't value that process of self-discovery as much as they value an SAT score or a piece of paper that says you graduated from this school and in theory have this subset of knowledge versus an individual who actually knows themselves and knows what they're capable of and how they can add value for companies?
Yeah, I think the school system is very traditional and it hasn't changed a lot over the years. And you see it lags behind what is happening in the world and it tries to catch up. And the idea that we're sending our kids through this system to learn from people that aren't at the front end or you could probably learn a lot more from people that are doing some of the things rather than, not all subjects, but things in business.
I feel like you're dancing around the way of saying you can learn more from experts than you can teachers.
Yeah.
In a nice way with respect to everyone.
And my wife's a teacher, and so she's working with the elementary kids and doing physical education, which is different, which is a whole nother topic. But I think as kids progress through middle school and high school and then in college, it doesn't necessarily prepare you, even some of the entrepreneur programs don't really prepare you to go out and start a business, and nor would it do as much as if you just started one. And it's a hard thing to learn from a book and from someone that's not really doing currently than to just go out and do it. And you can talk all you want and prepare all you want, but until you jump in, that's where you're going to learn the most. So there are some great things that come from school. I got my degree in economics, and so learning the skills of communication and being responsible and all the stuff that comes with school as a structure, I think helps you in a corporate world. But when you're going to start your own business, like, people think that's freedom. It's actually less freedom. You've got more on your plate. You have less time. It's wild. I think some of the reasons people do that, and they find out real quick that's if it's them or not. And the best way is just to do it.
I love it. So Jake, help me understand. We talked about, obviously you and I, at least to my knowledge, we don't run any schools, but maybe we have kids. So if you took that same approach and you applied it to how people parent, are people more on the traditional side or are they on the non-traditional side? Help me understand how you think people, the average person, is positioning their children to be successful, however they define success. And maybe how you're helping your kids be successful, however you define success.
Yeah, the opinions are all over the place. I think there's always going to be different ideas and people that are more supportive of the current system and some that are not. As far as I have kids in all of them. I got elementary, middle school, high school, one that'll go to college soon. And my oldest, who's going to go to college, he wants to be an engineer. And that makes sense. He has to go and do that to get into that field. But I think helping them understand who they are and what motivates them to do what they want to do, like what they like, what they enjoy, how could they make money from that. The process of bringing value to the world is something that not everyone is meant to do. Some are meant to go get a job and go 9 to 5, check in, check out, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with it. If you're not aware of you're miserable every day and you hate waking up on Monday, then that's your fault. It's on you. So it's accountability and self-awareness and knowing what you can do and taking action to change it. And I think it leads back honestly to what influences you, who you listen to, what you read can make a big impact. I listen to a lot of different podcasts and influencers that my wife doesn't. And so we have a little bit different view on school and college and things. And sometimes my kids, they know both, they understand both, and they're very aware that what I believe and what she believes. And so they can make their own choice. And my job is to help support them, not tell them what to do. And I want them to find what brings them enough joy that they don't look forward to just the weekend. That's a horrible way to live. And I've spent too many times with people that live that way. And I don't want to see that for my kids.
I love that, Jake. And I think that's the norm, unfortunately, or fortunately.
It totally is.
From our perspective, I think it's a bit unfortunate. But I think there have been a couple undertones. And one of the undertones has been maybe time is more valuable than money, and how you spend your time is really valuable. But also the realization that maybe people in their 40s, in their 30s, they don't have the money or they haven't built the financial freedom to be able to spend their time how they want, while also layering in the fact that having a business doesn't mean that you have more freedom. So help me understand from your perspective, Jake, what should people be doing in their late teens, 20s, 30s to really build up and be in a position to have more freedom in their 40s, 50s, etc., from your perspective?
Invest in themselves and make themselves more valuable, because at the end of the day, you can get this job and have this pay, but then you could be told the next day you're gone. So you need to invest in yourself, because that is the ultimate asset, is you. You're the asset. So what is it that's going to make you stand out, and what is it you can do to bring the world more value? So when you're young, don't worry so much about trying to figure it out. Just worry about making yourself better. And it's going to come a little bit at a time. It's just like going to the gym. It's just like anything else that you want to get good at. It doesn't happen in a day. It's going to be a long progression every day if you can just make a little bit better. Making a podcast, it's free. You can make a podcast. You've got a phone. Anyone can do this. Whether or not anyone will listen, they're probably not going to listen. That's how you start.
The right people will listen.
The right people listen, but then eventually you get better and better at your skill, right? You become a better podcaster. You learn from that. And whether or not you continue that or you use that skill in a different way, like now you're able to have conversations with people. You're able to share content. All these opportunities exist out there, but they don't happen if you don't put yourself in the world. And there's so many ways.
You don't get a little uncomfortable.
And most people are just scared. For a couple years, I had a non-compete. I won't give you that story, but I had to pivot and actually do something totally different. I did a lot of content. And I talked to so many people in the financial services world that have this desire to make content and share the good things they're doing behind closed doors, one by one, right? And they would always make every excuse in the book why they couldn't get on camera. And stop making excuses and get past
Make yourself uncomfortable enough so that you have to do it.
Yeah.
No, I agree with you, Jake. I think it's easy to make decisions that keep us comfortable. I think I loved what you said about small improvements being massive. I think if anyone is trying to understand more about that, read a book like Atomic Habits. It really helps solidify how to make success inevitable, which is really powerful. But I guess, Jake, with this, it's also to understand that people have their own perspective on how to scale, how to build up their kids, etc. You mentioned or alluded to the fact that you have 4 kids in different walks of life. How do you approach it when one of them has a setback with the intention of really helping them be successful in the long term, not necessarily just a short-term success over that one setback?
Try to get them to think long term. Try to get them to see past it. And the thing I'm always talking about is build your vision. What is your vision? The most successful people in the world over hundreds of years had a vision and they got told no. They had big hurdles. They had things ruined. They had to go over tough stuff, but they didn't lose that vision. And only you can build that in a way that will help you get through the tough times. So most people just don't ever even have that. They don't even think about it. They don't know where they're going. They're just like waking up and doing the same thing every day. You have to have that vision so that they might seem big at the time, those hurdles happen, it doesn't stop you. And to me, that's been the most common theme. I listen to a lot of different podcasts about history and about how it repeats itself. And that's a common one of the most successful people.
I love that. Jake, help us understand, what exactly are you doing today? I know you mentioned you started with E-Trade. You went into financial services. You went into 401ks. You noticed a lot of people don't have enough saved in their 401k. Why is that? Why don't they have enough in their 401ks? And how did that lead you to what you work on today?
Yeah, it was an amazing stat that I just kept standing out to me was like your average 65-year-old maybe had 200,000 saved.
And how much should they have, in your opinion, living in Utah, living in New Jersey, if you were to just throw out a range?
Like 10 times, like way more.
So my range is 3 to 5 million. People need 3 to 5.
We're living longer. And when you retire, it's like you still have a third of your life. Like it's still, and retirement isn't just an age anymore. It never really was, but now it's even stronger for you to know how you're going to fund your future. And I think the reason most people don't have enough to retire, what hit me so hard was like, they're not going to go without their health insurance before they go without their 401k. The 401k gets dropped off first. So they can't afford both. So they pick the health insurance. And the health insurance keeps going up, usually double-digit numbers every year. And during your healthy years, you're paying into this system in case you have an accident or get sick, which can happen, but it's a pretty small percentage. And you pay throughout your whole career. You might have that accident or get sick at some point late in your career, and you're glad you had the health insurance, but for the whole rest of the time, you were just feeding this system and you're not getting enough value out of it. And because we're taught so wrong about the broken way that health insurance and healthcare are two different things. We think they're one. They're two different. And it's confusing because these health insurance companies have bought a lot of the healthcare components. They bought pharmacies, hospitals, doctors. They own it, and they're deciding the prices, and they continue to just raise them up because we don't question it. We just, whatever our employer picks, because they have a buddy that's their health broker, put them in this thing, and they wine and dine them, and this is who's paying for it, is the employees.
And Jake, if you don't mind, let's pause here. I want to reiterate something you mentioned earlier that I wrote down. People complicate things to be paid more. We live in America, a capitalistic society that we love. But fundamentally, if there's a product that you don't understand or that's too confusing, there's definitely at least one person making a lot of money off of you, which is fine as long as you get that value. Right. Jake, help demystify this for us, because I know you're saying there's a difference between, let's say, providers, healthcare insurance companies, and where you actually go for healthcare. So help us continue that journey. And I'm sorry to interrupt you, but it's just, this is fundamentally people buy things they don't need. They pay more than they should. Happens all the time in every industry. And it's fundamentally because systems are built to be more confusing than they need to be. So help me understand the difference between these two and how the average listener listening to this can derive some value from it.
Yeah, definitely. So the main thing to understand first and foremost is that healthcare and going to the doctor, going to the hospital, getting prescriptions is different than your health insurance. And how the health insurance world works is behind the scenes, there's actually 4 components, right? And every month you pay out of your check to this health insurance product that your employer has selected for you. You don't even have a say. Like your HR or CFO picks it. They say, here, it's $800, $900 for your family, or maybe it's $2,000. Like it's all over the board. It's as much as a house payment sometimes that you're paying for your health insurance. And that money goes to the health insurance company, and they stack it up and they invest it and they make it grow. And you go to the doctor, sends a bill, the health insurance pays the bill from the money you sent them. And at the end of the year, maybe 3 to 5% of the people, your peers, or maybe it was you, had something catastrophic. Maybe someone got cancer, maybe got a car accident, a huge claim, $1 million. That $1 million claim hits the insurance company. They're like, oh yeah, that's more than we collected from this person. They have insurance behind the scenes called stop loss or reinsurance that pays that big, massive bill. They already planned for it. They pay a per person fee a month for that. Then at the end of the year, they come and say, your company spent this much over the premium we paid because they had that bill, but they didn't actually pay the bill. The stop loss company did. And they say, we're going to have to charge you 20% more next year. And they say, was there anything we can do? No. Okay, we'll do it.
We have no options.
You've paid maybe $10,000 into this yourself. Maybe you went and got to the doctor a handful of times. Maybe you spent $2,000 in care. So they kept $8,000 of profit from you, paid for anyone else that needed it. And if it was a big claim, that got paid for by another insurance company that
by
they
the reinsurance you alluded to
reinsurance policy. And they used that as leverage to say, we got to charge everybody more next year, even though you didn't spend all that much. So you're actually, the way I present it to employers and what I do, I help your employees, I help you fund the healthcare your employees are purchasing. And when you start to look at all the components of a health insurance policy, you can unravel it and remove conflicts of interest and get the very same safe way of reducing that risk to all employees and keep the money that doesn't get used if you teach people how to buy healthcare differently and you can actually better care, lower cost, lower your premiums. There's so many cool things going on across the country in different pockets because every state and region has different hospitals. And it's a very complex system on purpose because you just can't navigate it, so they can just keep selling you more and more expensive products. And that's a kind of a quick high level of explaining it, but your average employee has no idea what's going on behind the scenes. They go show their insurance card and they figure insurance should pay. They're the ones paying for that insurance, right? The insurance is using your money. It's like a casino. And when they don't have enough money from you at your whole company, they're going to come next year and say, we want all of it we lost and a little bit more. They're not going to lose. They go out of business. They're making tons of money in a lot of ways. And so that's the simplest way to lay it out. And depending on what kind of business you are, if you're growing by people, this is the number 2 or number 3 cost, right? If you're growing by people and you're going to continue to scale, you got your salaries and payroll, and you've got your benefits. If you're manufacturing, you got probably your cost of goods to make whatever you're making, then you got your salaries, and then you got benefits. It's a massive thing, and it's very all over the map as far as how people are buying this and what product they're in and which plans they're using. It's pretty interesting to unravel it. So that's what I do now, is help employers understand that so that they can remove the conflicts and keep the savings for the company to use it in other ways. And eventually it trickles down to helping the employees get better care, stay healthier, get actually seen earlier on before they get something catastrophic. If you get cancer and you track it earlier, it's a life or death situation we're talking about. This isn't just money. We'll save probably hundreds of thousands of dollars, but we'll also save your life. That's super important to me.
I love it, Jake. And obviously, I think it's a product that is maybe confusing, maybe dense for people. I don't think necessarily people understand how it works, in my humble opinion. For me, it made sense to some degree, but as I scratch the layers, I'm curious to understand, when you're selling this product to somebody, are you talking to the CFO of a small company? Are you talking to HR professional? Who are you talking to? And how are you helping them understand the massive value that this product provides them?
Yeah, my number one
customers.
Sure, yeah, my number one goal is to talk to the owner, right? If I can talk to the owner of the company, they're going to understand this and care about it more. When you get
why would they care more than their HR professional or their CFO or the small employee in the company?
Their mindset will be different than someone just in a job. Okay. They're going to understand that this expense is growing and that they're not really doing anything about it. Whereas in other areas, if you're building something or you have a service and you have this expense that keeps growing, and you're going to look for ways to reduce that cost and improve it. But for some reason in healthcare, we're like, yeah, it is what it is. And that's the mistake. And eventually,
and I feel like most people don't realize that like everything is negotiable. There is a solution out there to drop this cost. This cost shouldn't continually rise, especially if I can get a better product for less, then obviously I'd be interested. Is that kind of what you're alluding to, Jake?
It's more helping them understand this is a strategic decision, not let's look once a year at the different prices and quotes we can get. So other insurance we buy in our life, it's all like the quote, right? We can shop our auto and home and all that, and we want the cheapest, right? There's no value to pay more to a different insurance company. Maybe they answer the phone faster or have an app that you like or some mascot or whatever. And you like that brand more, maybe. But you're usually shopping what's the cheapest because you don't expect to have any claims. You don't want to have any claims. Health insurance is different. You're going to have claims. You know it. You expect them to be paid for you. You expect this money that you're paying for this premium to actually do something for you all year long for the care your family needs. And that's the wrong way to purchase health insurance. It shouldn't be based on premium price. It should be based on all the different components you need to get better care. So the insurance companies have muddied all this up and put it all together and try to keep you in the dark and help you buy on price when it doesn't matter. You're actually going to buy healthcare no matter what, but you're going to pay a lot more if you do it the wrong way. And they're not going to tell you about it. They're just going to keep charging you more. So I like talking to the owner because they're going to understand that differently. They're going to understand, and you want to relate it to their industry in other facets of their business. Like they have expenses and they're usually controlling those and know every little down to the penny what this costs them and what can they do to make them more efficient. But this number 2 or 3 expense, they're like not really paying
attention. Forget about it. There's no room to negotiate, no room for it to be better. So what type, when you talk about business owners, what type of industry are they typically in? The ones that are more receptive to learning about this and improving their balance sheet, their P&L.
Definitely the ones that have tighter margins. So manufacturing, healthcare, funny enough, like a lot of them that have really tight margins are willing to put the work in that it takes on the front end to design this and to really unbundle things. Tech companies, typically high margin industries, they're like, yeah, it's okay. It's a premium they'll pay. And they'd rather not think about it, which is sad to me until I hit a point and they're like, yeah, let's do something about it. So there's definitely pockets of industries and I would say different regions that are more open to it. And this is called self-funding, right? There's a spectrum. There's fully insured and self-funding. When you say fully insured, it means you just one price, you pay it all to one insurance company and they handle everything. When you go self-funded, instead of sending a check to that insurance company every month for thousands and millions of dollars, you're sending it to an account in the company's name, and then the bills that come in from the healthcare your employees purchase is paid out of that account. So the horror stories that are told out there about this strategy not working is because they didn't fund that account. They kept the money, said there's no claim, so we're not going to fund the account, and then claims start coming in, and they're like, oh, we don't have the money. So there's ways to do it where you actually have the same fully insured experience, where you're like, oh, there's no risk, we pay for all of it, they handle all of it. You can design the same thing and keep the benefits of teaching your employees how to do it.
Jake, help me unpack this because I think this is a common misconception people have. You're talking about fully funded versus self-funded. The idea of fully funded being that everything is taken care of for you, like a done-for-you solution. Most people, I would think, would opt for that because they have peace of mind and they don't have to worry about it. The downside from my perspective by opting for that is maybe you're paying more money without realizing, which is exactly what you're highlighting, but then people go and mess it up. So I'm not going to focus on the people messing up self-funded part. Sure. If they have that issue, they should definitely reach out to you, Jake, and we'll have your contact information in the show notes. But fundamentally, people sometimes think, oh, hey, this is like a problem I don't want to deal with. Let me hire it out to somebody else. Let me go with the fully funded. The downside is that they're leaving money on the table. They're paying that money to somebody else. So how much do you think people are saving by going the self-funded route? How much more value are they getting, or how much of a discount, etc.? However way you word it, their dollar is going further self-funded if they do it right. So help me understand what that number is, if you don't mind.
It's usually 20 to 30% cheaper. And your average total, and every market's a little different, is around $10,000 a year per employee. So when you talk about 50-person company, not a big company, that's when Obamacare, Affordable Care Act says you have to offer benefits. You're spending $500,000 on health insurance. That's if you are average as far as you don't have any sick people with a lot of chronic problems and expensive prescriptions. We won't get into prescriptions. That's a deep topic. But $500,000, right? And we could save you $100,000. And this is for a 50-person group by going this route. But you've got to understand it's not a year-to-year strategy. This is a longer-term strategy. And the whole key to this, very honestly, is to stop leaving employees in the dark, telling them once a year in a 1-hour meeting, here's a big giant PDF book, benefit guide.
That no one reads.
No one reads. They forget about it. You'll get a card and then the emergency happens and they're like, I don't know what to do. We've got to start teaching people what to do because they're the drivers of the actual claims coming in, which drives your premiums. When you get a huge increase in premiums, because your people don't know what to do and they're going to the most expensive route. And if you're in a bad program, a bad plan, you might be paying more to go to this doctor or hospital than if you did it in a different way. Because the insurance company has not negotiated in a fair way to get you the best rate. There's examples all over the place. You see them on TikTok and Instagram of you show an insurance company your card or a provider. You go to a doctor's office and you're like, here's my insurance. And they thought you were cash pay. Maybe it was like $100 cash pay for the visit, but they show them the insurance card. Now it's $300. This is a common situation because they've negotiated that rate. And once they know that, then they can't give you the cash price because they know you have insurance. And this is why
you end up paying more.
Yeah. You're paying more and you're like, insurance pays, but insurance is getting the money from you. Remember that.
Or you have a high deductible plan and you didn't meet your deductible and you were paid out of pocket. There's so many different layers to this, Jake. But fundamentally, circling back, Jake, If we take the pessimistic approach that people don't want to learn, then how do you actually make the process better, if you don't mind me asking?
So one thing that I did...
People meaning like both the person using the health insurance and the company themselves, not necessarily wanting to learn.
Yeah, the key, it's information. Our job in the benefit space is to provide a lot of information for people to know what to do when the situation happens. And the classic method is that benefit guide, right? And what I did different in the 401k space that's worked well, which I'm trying to actually do in the benefits world as a whole, is giving people multiple mediums to consume the information they need on demand wherever they are. We're seeing a little bit of that, and some of them are good and some of them are not so good, but teaching people kind of one resource to go to, and that's usually your spouse is like the one maybe that's got the kids at home and not sure what to do and who to call, and so they go wherever they want to go, not knowing that's out of network or whatever. So I think building like just a simple landing page with video content, not some garbage thing that's hard to understand and some like really convoluted voiceover, like you can put your face in front of people. So what I did in 401k, I'll give you an example. I made landing pages for all my 401k clients, and I knew the common questions I would get. I got my meetings down to 15 minutes, and I would give them this website, and I would have like how to invest, why a 401k is what it is, what to do to change your investments, how to change your contribution, how do I do a rollover, all the questions I knew I was going to get, and then they could have it on demand, and they could go to that website. It was me showing them a demo on their exact platform they're using, whether it was Fidelity, Vanguard, Voya, whoever. So they had a hub of resources. So whenever I got reached out to, and I put a button to text me at the top, they could text me a question, they could schedule a Zoom call, and whenever they would, I'd say, what are you struggling with? And it was usually one of those questions, and I would just refer them back to that. Then they had all the information, the links, the demo for me, like way better than me jumping on and trying to like take more of their time.
Piecemeal it, yeah.
So
this way they can consume
we're
it
not
on their
doing
time.
that yet.
Yeah.
We're not doing that very well. And it's very still confusing. And so we've got to make a better process to teach people how to get better care and know how to do it before the emergency and know when that happens, where to go to get information to do it right. When you call the insurance company or you go to the front desk of the doctor's office, they're not going to tell you. They don't know. They're just like, they're stuck in the old way. And so they're not going to tell you, oh yeah, you should do this or that. And there's a lot more to that, but that's one thing that I've been focused on is using content. Video content is so easy to distribute to thousands of people. Why are we not doing that?
I feel like that's so powerful. So Jake, if I was a business owner, if I had a couple employees and I was looking to save money and drop expenses, increasing the value to the employees that ultimately create value for the company and for our customers, what would be the best way for me to contact you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm most active on LinkedIn. So just Jake Rushton on LinkedIn. Also, my website's jakerushton.com. So I put a lot of content out. I've put it on most social platforms. There's a lot of old 401k stuff as well, but also the benefits I've been continually adding more and more. And I'm a part of a kind of a little group of, I don't know what to call it, mastermind, but we're just a group of guys that are all thinking and doing the same things across the country. So wherever you are, if I'm not able to help you and I don't know your market well enough, I have a good close friend that does what I'm talking about in your space, in your region, that'll know maybe the hospitals and what direct contracts we can get, things that'll help your business. But yeah, reach out, ask your question. I'm more than open to give as much as I can to help people and understand this isn't always a top priority, but eventually it will be because it just keeps going up and we got to do something about it.
I love it, Jake. Again, thank you so much for joining us on MyFinJourney. Thank you for bringing us all your years of experience and offering actionable wisdom on financial literacy and building our futures with intention. If you're listening to this episode and you found value, don't forget to subscribe, leave a 5-star review, and share it with someone who is looking to scale faster and more efficiently on their financial journey, or maybe a business owner who you think can provide better services to their employees and increase their bottom line. Jake's insight is proof that success doesn't happen by accident. It's built through mindset, action, and relentless pursuit, while also maintaining a bit of nimbleness to understand how you can add value in line with your passion. So once again, stay intentional with your goals, keep moving forward, and remember, the best investment you can make is in yourself. Jake mentioned it a couple times, and I want to reiterate it. Until next time, keep thriving and take action on your journey. Take care, guys. Bye.